Hello, and welcome to another episode of Morgan's Pop Talks, breaking down the latest in reality TV and pop culture. Listen to these vocal cords. Oh, they sound so great. You guys have no idea what I've been through the past week. Okay, last week, minor life moment. I got married. Okay, I was so excited to come back and tell you guys all about the fact that I am now a married woman. I'm a Mrs. and I lost my voice. I mean, I literally was talking like that. And you know, I have a really hard time taking time off like for sickness because my whole entire life, like even if I was deathly ill, my parents would make me do everything. So I have that guilt like hanging over my head at all times. So I was like, okay, I can do it. I can do it. And then I tried to do it and I sounded like an insane person. And I was like, I cannot put you guys through that. It was truly horrific, but feeling better and still feeling married. Can you believe it? We made it to the end of a long road. Not only that, it's BravoCon weekend. So, I mean, my life has just been nonstop for the past 3 weeks. I mean, it's just go, 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 go. We're leaving for Vegas. You could potentially be listening to this podcast on your way to Vegas. David and I land on Thursday evening, and then we're there until Monday. So I will be posting to Extra Pop, the Patreon, all weekend long. So if you want in real time updates, make sure you're subscribed. The link is in the show notes below. But other than that, let's get into the pop three of the biggest headlines of reality TV and pop culture this week. I will say there's an honorable mention, and I saw it right before I got on here to start the podcast. Sophie Turner was making out with some really hot guy. And I was like, yes. Okay, here we go. I don't know who he is, like I said. And also, okay, I skimmed the article, which is why I didn't actually put it in the pop three. I don't know why I'm talking about it right now because I'm probably like got everything wrong. But they were saying basically it was like a Mauricio and Emma moment where it was dark and you couldn't really see anything besides their hands. In this scenario, it was really dark and you couldn't see anything besides their heads pretty much glued together. So TBD on whether or not Sophie Turner has a new boyfriend. It is what it is. Let's get into the actual pop three. Lindsay Hubbard did this sit-down interview with Us Weekly. She talked about her breakup with Carl, her friendship with Danielle, her friendship with Kyle. She was spilling all the tea. So I'm going to give you a quick debrief and then just highlight on the things that I found most interesting. First of all, she did this 2 days before a Summer House panel where her and Carl are going to be on the same stage for the first time since they ended their engagement. Have they talked since then? I'm pretty sure that they have. But I mean, this is in front of a live audience. You know, is Lindsay going to have a moment? Is Carl going to have a moment? You don't know. But basically, Lindsay talked about going through the stages of grief, you know, saying that she was really sad and sick over it, that she was really angry over it, and that she's starting to get into the healing phase of it, which honestly, in my opinion, if that is true and she's like on her healing journey already, like more power to you, because back in the day, the last time I got broken up with, even though I knew this guy was no good for me, he was a total jerk, it took me a long time. I want to say, honest Bible, I want to say like a year. So, I mean, obviously she's not like skipping through fields of dandelions, but still, you know, she's getting back out there. She's doing things that make her happy. We love that. She did say that it was in the last 2 weeks of summer that Carl's demeanor changed towards her. She said there was a lot of combativeness and aggression towards her. So, and obviously this is only one side of the story, but I'm just going to comment on this side of the story. To me, that kind of says that the wheels were turning in Carl's head for at least these 2 weeks, that something is not right. And it seems like maybe the decision to break up with her on camera was maybe like a snap decision, you know, because all of this, like she says, aggression and combativeness has been building up. And then he's thinking in the back of my mind, I'm on a TV show. People already accuse me of being boring. How am I going to make sure that if I do end this marriage or engagement, that I'm not just completely written off the show? Hence, he calls his production, which she said was humiliating. She said the whole world found out within 30 minutes of me, which is pretty crazy. She said that Danielle and her girlfriends have been really standing by her side, that Danielle has been there for her. And she said it became a story about sisterhood, which when you think back to how last summer ended, it's like, wow, you know, those same girls were like cheering at the demise of Danielle and Lindsay's relationship. So I'm really hoping that that is true, you know, that all of the girls rallied around her and that it became, like she says, a story about sisterhood. She talks about Kyle and how I think her and Kyle hate each other. I think they're very similar, which probably, you know, they rub each other the wrong way because they're so similar. They're both great reality TV stars, in my opinion, for those reasons. You know, they're not afraid to get activated or have a fight on camera or, you know, say something outlandish that we're all talking about the next day. But she said that she believes Kyle will always see her as the villain and that, you know, Carl maybe needed an ally. And Kyle, look, Kyle and Carl, they're like brothers. So what do you expect? So she also said that 2 weeks before he called it off, he was at her bridal shower, which we all saw. 1 week before was her dress fitting, and then he was fitting for his suits with his groomsmen. So the stress of wedding planning isn't the straw that broke the camel's back, what she's saying. And then also she said sobriety was not a factor in their relationship. I think maybe it had more to do with the uncertainty of their future. Maybe the pressure of knowing he was about to be a married man, maybe the pressure of not knowing exactly what he wants to do career-wise moving forward. I mean, we saw that last season with Loverboy. But she also said, and I think this is the part that really hits home for everybody, is that she lost a best friend, not just a fiance, maybe even more so. She lost a best friend. They have an 8-year friendship that, you know, is no longer. This is one thing I found interesting. What is she doing with the ring and the apartment? So she says, I gave it to my jeweler to sell it. I need to make up for all the lost money on the wedding. And then her apartment, she says, I live there. I love my apartment. I spent a lot of time, money, and effort to make this home comfortable for us. For him to then burn it down. And at this point, I'm not in the mind space to think about, oh, where am I going to live now? So I thought that was interesting. She says moving forward, she's going to write a book, that she has no regrets in the relationship and that it taught her that she was strong. Is Lindsay Hubbard dating? In this Us Weekly interview, she kind of hints that people have been sliding into her DMs and that she's ready. She said, I have a lot of friends looking to set me up. There's definitely been some people sliding into my DMs. I'm excited for this new chapter. It's a little too soon for my liking, but I'm also thinking that she might just need a fun distraction at the moment. Something fun, something lighthearted, something to make her, you know, excited, something to look forward to and to keep her busy. I think Lindsay needs an older man. I think she needs like early 50s, divorced, has a hedge fund. Like maybe his name is Clint. He works on Wall Street, analyzing stocks. That's the type of guy that I see Lindsay Hubbard with in the future. That or like a cowboy, like someone that needs to take her to the rodeo and let her hair down, you know, ride a bull, ride a mechanical bull every once in a while. I know that they are total opposites, but there will be no in between. So it's either a guy on Wall Street or a guy in a cowboy hat, and there will be no discussion. You know, this does pose a good question, though, what the future of Summer House will look like, because Lindsay and Carl surely are not going to want to share a summer house in the Hamptons when they were supposed to get married. Will one of them get the boot? I have no idea. I'm anxiously awaiting that decision. I think we all are. But I also think that they both do need to take time for themselves, you know, to heal, not get into anything too serious, and both just move forward and be happy. Let's move on to headline number 2, Mauricio and Emma. What is next? And in relation to Kyle Richards, Teddy Mellencamp is spilling some tea. We're going to do a spoiler alert for Dancing with the Stars. Mauricio and Emma were voted off this week, and Mauricio said he was shocked and surprised. I don't really know how he was shocked and surprised. He was in the bottom with Harry and Riley, who also need to be kicked off the show. But anyways, Emma said that Mauricio's great. he's inspirational. He's such a supportive friend. Like really just doting over Mauricio when they got kicked off. And then Mauricio says, this is not our last night on a dance floor. Which just could be like subject to interpretation, right? Do they mean like they're going to the clubs? They're going to the Abbey, a la Tom Sandoval and Rachel Leviss. This isn't going to be our last night on a dance floor. Okay, and then you have Kyle's best friend, Teddy, who of course has her podcast with Tamra, and she was talking about specifically the season premiere of The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, but she also was just sprinkling some things in there to allude to the fact that Mauricio may have cheated or done something really bad to tick Kyle off. Teddy seemed to suggest on this podcast episode that Mauricio was the one that messed up in the relationship, and that awkward scene at the end of the season premiere was Kyle reacting to the fact that Mauricio had done something. We're not privy to any of that information. All we see is them sit down and have this really awkward conversation about tattoos, about how Mauricio isn't looking at Kyle's body close enough. Mauricio seems very uncomfortable and Kyle seems very ticked. So Teddy's responding to that scene and she said, most of the time, the person that F's up isn't the angry one. She then says, I think it's clear at this point, Kyle's not ready to open up fully. And it looks to me like she's protecting Mauricio, but she's freaking pissed. Okay. That to me seems like Teddy's dropping a little bit more information than Kyle would like her to. Although it's like one of two things. Either Teddy wants to make headlines and talk about this and get press to pick up on it because it benefits her podcast, or Kyle like planted the seed and was like, yeah, Teddy, you can talk about this because it's only going to do better for Beverly Hills. And then Teddy says this, for years, I had so much resentment towards Edwin, and it was to the point where I couldn't even look at him. And the fact that we've been able to work through it has been huge. Tamara asks, are you saying that he cheated? And Teddy says, I'm saying, she like stumbled around a little bit. I'm saying that the photographs that Kyle just had to see online from TMZ were very triggering for me. And a light bulb went off in my head in that moment. If you watched Kyle and Teddy on Watch What Happens Live, Teddy alludes to the fact that her and Edwin went through this hard time during her first season of The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. To me, she was looking for Andy to be like, what? And Andy did not care at all. Like Teddy was like, yeah, me and Edwin went through something that was really difficult. And, it was while we were filming and I didn't know if we were going to get through it. And Andy was like, okay, so Kyle, what did you think about that? And like, he did not go there at all. And then she brings it back up a couple days later, or at least something like that. I had so much resentment towards Edwin. So I don't know. I think if something like this happened, obviously something happened between Edwin and Teddy, something that was bad. And she says, once you've been burned, it's really hard to come back. She knows way more about what's going on with Kyle and Mauricio than any of us do. So if she's drawing this comparison between her and Edwin, which she knows there was a bad situation between, potentially a cheating situation between, and she's saying, oh, Kyle and Mauricio are going through the same thing. Like, what else are we going to think? What else are we going to think? We're going to talk about it. That's exactly what she wants us to do. So here we are. Okay. Our last update, we're going to do our last Pop 3 headline. We're going to do Kardashian updates. There's a couple different Kardashian headlines floating around out there. First, Kourtney's due date and baby name. So Travis went on a podcast and said that the baby's name is going to be Rocky. Rocky 13, I guess, for the movies. This has been online for quite some time from like Kardashian pages and stuff that I follow. They've been dropping hints. I haven't paid like close enough attention to know what hints they were dropping, but people were like, oh, okay. I don't hate it for Kourtney and Travis. I mean, would I name my baby Rocky? Probably not. But for Kourtney and Travis, I think it's kind of fitting. Khloe is under fire for her Halloween costume. All you have to do is take a look at the picture and you will know why. Okay. Here's the thing. They dress up as Bratz dolls. People are saying Khloe looks 5 shades darker than she normally is in real life. At what point do the Kardashians know that this is going to happen to them? Like, prevent it. I mean, is it that hard? You have people, you are doing these Halloween photo shoots in a studio. It's like, even if you don't do it intentionally, you see the picture and you can tell that Khloe does look 3 shades darker than she is in real life. Photoshop it to make it not look like that. It's not that hard. I don't understand it. I really don't. And it's sad because I'm loving Khloe at the moment. She's my favorite right now. I go through like seasons of change where I switch it up on who's my favorite. Khloe's my favorite at the moment, especially watching this season of the Kardashians on Hulu, because everybody wants her to get back together with Tristan. And I can't for the life of me understand why. Chris is doing it. Kim is gassing him up. Malika is like, save your family. I'm like, Malika, shut up. Save your family. Are you new here, Malika? Have you been under a rock for the past 5 years? If anyone has tried to save her family, it's Khloe, not Tristan. So there's some conspiracy theories that they're already back together and they're just priming the audience so that when the moment comes that they are like, oh yeah, we decided to give our relationship another try, they can say, but look, we've been telling you guys, we've been telling you. Kim has been telling you that Tristan's so good. Chris has been telling you that he's such a great father. And meanwhile, you have Jordan Craig, another baby mama of Tristan, saying that he won't pay any of his child support. So it's like, give me a break. We're not going to buy it. We're not going to have it. And that's the end of it. Okay. Let's get into the deep dive. Every single week on my Instagram at Morgan P Talks, I open up the deep dive submissions to you. What is it you want to know more about this week? It's from my girl, Sam.
Hi, Morgan. This is Sam from Charleston, South Carolina. I absolutely love your page and the deep dives that you do. It's one of my favorite Bravo accounts that I follow. For the deep dive, I would love if you could do a rundown of the Vanity Fair article about Bravo and your opinion on it. Specifically, all of the Ramona Singer drama, the stuff about Ebony, as well as Leah, and all of the different things that have come out about it. I'm super interested in all of the Roni news, and I just absolutely love listening to your podcast and following your page. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on this. Love you like a sis.
Oh my gosh. See, that made me feel so good. If saying love you like a sis makes you feel that kind of joy in my heart, like that is my mission here on MPT, is to make you feel that good. So Sam, love you like a sis. Thank you for the deep dive question. I'm bringing on a friend this week to discuss it because there is lots to discuss. And I love all of her pop culture opinions that she puts out there. If you don't follow her, do so already. Her name is Donna. She hosts Daily Dose of Donna. So here we go, the deep dive about the Vanity Fair Exposé. Donna, hello. Thank you for joining MPT this week.
I'm so happy to be here, Morgan. Thanks for having me.
I needed you, of all people, of course, because I love your takes. And this Vanity Fair article is just a lot to get through. And I feel like I definitely needed somebody to just bounce my ideas off of, because there's so many things. We've been hearing about this article for a while. You know, there's supposed to be this, juggernaut to the Bravo sphere, this reality reckoning. And I felt this way. And I feel like everybody else that I've seen felt this way, but I want to get your opinion as well, that it was not the big gotcha moment that we were anticipating.
I mean, they're calling it a flop. And I would say, I hate to be like, it's one of those things, because when I saw that the article came out, I immediately, I stopped what I was doing. It was like, I need all eyes on deck. Like, we need to be reading this, thinking, oh my God, I can't. And halfway through the article, I was like, why am I getting bored? Why am I losing my train of thought?
Yeah.
Why am I not that interested in it? And actually, I stopped reading it for a while to do something else, and then came back to it because I knew I had to.
Right.
That, I think, is kind of the overall feeling from it. It's like we thought we were going to get this pot of gold, and we got just like a little, I don't know, Lucky Charms.
Yeah. It was a lot of stuff that A, we already knew. B, I feel like situations that could be misinterpreted, depending on who you're talking to. And C, it's just another, for me, attention grab for Bethany Frankel, which cheapens the message I think that she's trying to get out. But we're going to break it down section by section. There are 3 housewives that actually go on record in the article: Leah McSweeney and Ebony Williams, formerly of the Real Housewives of New York, and of course Bethany Frankel, also of New York. And it starts with Leah. And
Those are the only three that are talking, right? We haven't seen any others.
yeah, that are actually quoted. I think they use a quote from Heather Gay. I couldn't figure out if Heather talked directly to Vanity Fair or if they referenced Heather saying something similar. But everybody else, every other potential housewife, it's like anonymous.
Yeah.
But these three are the ones that kind of detail their, experiences.
Yeah.
And we'll start with Leah because she's the first one in this article. So let's start with Leah, whose major grievance comes around alcohol consumption and then also a situation with her grandmother while she was filming. So she says that she comes into her first season of New York. She relapsed coming into her first season. So she went, I think, 10 years being sober. She started drinking again, and then she started filming The Real Housewives of New York. So she had already made the decision to start drinking again when, cameras first got her, on screen.
Mm-hmm.
So she talks about how they go on this. They were in New York. It wasn't like a cash trip. Do you remember where they were when she was throwing
the tiki torches?
Yeah.
I think that was like upstate or somewhere, like it was like a Hamptons home or something like that. It wasn't a flying somewhere to go. It was more just like someone's vacation home. I think it was it Ramona's home or Sonia's home?
Yeah, I think it was one of those two. But she talks a lot about the amount of alcohol that she was drinking on that. We'll just call it a trip for lack of better words. Mm-hmm. And then she's talking about how her grandma was, more or less passing away while she was on this trip. And she talked about it on camera. She talked about how she wanted to leave to go be by her grandmother's side. That production told her, you can do that. But she says she felt like that meant the opposite. And I'm paraphrasing, but that's kind of the first major alarm bell, right? That this is how the Vanity Fair article starts with production told me I could leave, but it felt like it meant the opposite. What did you make of her recollection of that?
Okay, there's two things happening here. I think it's really hard when we're starting with a character like Leah McSweeney, because I think the overall fan take on Leah is not super liked. Like, she's not a super likable person or housewife. I don't know how she is in real life, but I'm saying as a housewife, we as a fan, like community, are mostly not on board. And I remember I posted about, this article saying, will she ever join Housewives again? And I've never gotten so many like DMs. No, hopefully not, never. And this is before the article. So I think that we're already starting with a situation where we have someone that wasn't a fan fave. And then when you go into this feeling of, or this story of, it was so bad, but not for any specific thing that production did, but just my experience was so bad, but they didn't do anything, but I think it was really bad. It feels immediately like, I hate to say it, but it feels a little bit like a child or something saying, my mom is so unfair because she gives me a curfew.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like it was rooted in anything real. Production, in Leah's case, did, in my opinion, nothing wrong. Now, my husband was on my show the other day, and he's in reality TV, and he said that on a lot of these shows, they do psych evals, before you cast the person, before you do a Big Brother type of show or any of those competition shows. You have to make sure that you've got your stuff together a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. And he thinks like she should just have not been cast, because if you are someone that is 10 years of, sober after being a heavy alcoholic saying now I'm drinking again, well, maybe they wanted the drama, but it doesn't feel like probably the best choice for production. So I think there was a mistake there.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. And, talking about her feeling like she couldn't leave, to go to her grandmother's funeral and grieve her grandmother. The quote from Heather said, I would be afraid to leave and go to my grandmother's funeral. I think that is just like, one sentence that can be interpreted many different ways. And I think in entertainment in general, and especially if you're a housewife getting paid to be on camera, I think no matter what the situation is, anytime that you have to be away from the camera, you're scared that you're going to lose your job. Because how easily do they pluck housewives in and out because you're not there for 3 episodes or you're not there for however much time? So to me, it's like not really about the fact that production couldn't or wouldn't accommodate her. It's more her thought that if I leave and I don't get this screen time, I'm not going to be a housewife very long.
100%. And Emily from Real Housewives of OC was just on the Jeff Lewis show a few weeks ago. And she was talking about the fact that she missed that big trip that they took because she was really sick. She had COVID and she couldn't go on one of the big trips. And Jeff said, well, did you get paid anyway? And she said, well, yeah, I mean, I was still a cast member and I got paid. But as a cast member, you don't want to miss out on those big trips or those big events because you're going to be on the outs. Maybe you don't really know what's going on. And then you could be missing some really important like scenes or situations. So let's call it what it is, Leah. You didn't want to miss. It wasn't that you weren't told you could go or weren't. I'm sure production's not heartless for the most part. I'm sure they felt bad for her. And I'm sure they said, please go. And she said, no, it's okay. I don't want to go. Yeah. That's not production's fault. That really is only something that you feel guilty about that you didn't do. And you're kind of placing, in my opinion, placing the blame to relieve your own guilt.
It would be totally different if they said, if you go to, the hospital to be with your grandma, we are terminating your contract.
Exactly. Or we will no longer pay you.
Yeah, totally different scenarios. And I feel like it's kind of the same when she gets into the drinking on Ultimate Girls Trip, because that's the second part of her excerpt in this Vanity Fair article. She says that other castmates were pressuring her to drink. According to the article, Giselle from the Real Housewives of Potomac said to her, like, if you drank this weekend, would that be a big deal? Leah said, it would ruin my life. So I don't know. Did you see what Giselle said in response to all of this?
She goes, production doesn't have to tell me shit, right? Isn't that something she said? Yeah.
Yeah. She said, we go on these girls' trips and we don't know each other. I was getting to know Leah. She said, what I knew of Leah was that she was drunk and throwing tiki torches in her first season of The Real Housewives of New York. And then I later heard that she was sober. So what I was trying to do in that moment was figure out is what Leah I need to be prepared for to film with, because at that point she had seen both.
Yep. It didn't feel in any way like I watched the beginning of that girls' trip. I have to be honest. It was a pretty hard season to continue with, like after a few episodes. But once again, Leah was quite insufferable on that show, like the first couple of episodes. And I didn't feel like what the conversation around drinking for someone who is a sober person on a show where they used to be hammered and wasted and very famously like doing something crazy. That is a genuine like topic of conversation. If I was at dinner with Leah, I would also say, so you're not drinking anymore? Like, what's going on? What's happening? I don't get this feeling of like, they had it out for me. They needed me to drink. They were all trying to get me to drink. I do think that a couple of them were a little maybe insensitive, like Mary Saul.
Yeah.
And I think Heather maybe was like, can we get her drunk or whatever? Right. But is that production?
And is it insensitive? Yes. Is it illegal? No. It's not.
No. It's like, I know alcoholism is a serious disease, but if I was out to dinner with my friend who was like deciding not to eat sugar and dairy, and I was like, come on, have a little piece of cake. Like, what? Am I like the worst person in the world? They're not friends. They didn't know each other. I bet Heather and Mary Saul felt like shit afterwards knowing the situation, but that's who they are. They have no filters, half these women. They just say what's on their mind. Not a production issue.
Yeah. And, because of both of those incidences, we learned in the article that she actually did lodge a complaint that the network violated the Americans with Disabilities Act. It says the incident seems to result from what she claims was pressure that caused her to relapse on Roni and the way they treated her following the death of her grandmother. So kind of like we just said, I don't even know, like, does this have any legs in court?
Calling all lawyers. I mean, so is she saying that her disability is alcoholism?
It didn't specify, because
I was like a mental health situation.
Yeah, I was also confused what particularly would be the disability.
It feels like you go to an attorney and you're like, please tell me we have a case. And she's like going through the books and she's like, aha, I found one little path that we can take. But I personally just do not buy the Leah McSweeney of it all. It to me is like such, if this is what you got for Vanity Fair, like this is the one.
Yeah.
It was a fail.
and started with it. I mean, right off the bat, I feel like it would have been way more, and maybe even not way more, but even Ebony's part was way more impactful to me than Leah's, because at least
Agree.
it feels like it has a lot more merit to it. And just before we switch gears to Ebony, I do want to say I mean, we've seen this argument everywhere too, but there are tons of sober people on Bravo that have no problem being long-term castmates. You have Candy from Atlanta. You have Lala, who's, in my opinion, one of the most entertaining reality stars that
And
Bravo
doesn't touch it.
has. And
Mhm.
she hasn't drank in 5 years.
Mhm.
So again, it just feels like
We
Leah's
had
trying
Jill
to,
Zarin on her
yeah,
Diet Cokes.
yeah,
There's so many amazing cast members, even just this last season. Uba. I mean, Uba gave us so much entertainment on Roni.
yeah,
Never once drinks alcohol. And this is not, it doesn't connect to me. We are human beings and adults. And Morgan, if you don't want to have a drink tonight and you're at a party with an open bar and people are literally walking around giving you alcohol and you don't want to have a drink, you don't have to have a drink. And I guarantee you'll have fun.
right,
So you can't blame the host of the party for serving you alcohol if you get drunk.
right.
It's your fault. I've never blamed a restaurant for getting drunk. I've always only taken it like a responsibility. Like, I screwed up. I drank too much.
Right, right. Okay, let's move on to Ebony, because like I said, her story was more impactful to my opinion. However, even though it was impactful, it wasn't any real groundbreaking new information. I think the events that have happened since then, which we'll get into, that's more groundbreaking than what was actually in the article. But Ebony Williams talked about her relationship with Ramona Singer, Ramona Singer's alleged racism, claiming that she made statements like most Black people don't have present fathers, and whether or not she could say that. They're talking about, they had like this diversity call, right? The training before they went into season 13 or 14 with Ebony. And Ramona asks, can I say something like this? And so that's, where all of this is stemming from. But there's been more examples of Ramona's alleged racism, even a story that got picked up this week that she's no longer going to be at BravoCon because she texted a Page Six
Reporter.
source, and pretty much used the slur again to say, I didn't say it. This is what I said instead of saying this. I'm just like, at what point is Ramona gonna get it? Because there's no excuse for it anymore.
No, and I just talked about this today on my show too, because I thought like it's a very important conversation to understand that, there are certain things that are never okay.
Mm-hmm.
There are certain things that are just never okay, right? You never use that word unless maybe that is in your culture and you talk about that openly with your friends or whatever, but we don't use that word. White women, men should not be using that word. Like
right.
I can't even say it like in jest, like talking about the story to a friend.
Right.
So I don't understand how you could talk about it like publicly, right? I don't understand it. But Ramona, and I'm not saying but like giving her an out, because nothing justifies it. Ramona is always putting her foot in her mouth over everything, right? That's not just in this racist way, which is clearly an issue for her, but just talking down to people, treating service like shit, right? Like the help and asking people to do things for her. And we've heard so many accounts of people meeting her in real life and she has no idea who your name is. Right. I remember she was on Two T's in a Pod and could not remember Teddy Mellencamp's name. This is a current housewife, or this was another housewife and a podcast host. Like, I guarantee you, if I met Ramona right now, she would literally not remember who I was tomorrow. Like, this is just who she is.
Yeah.
So I'm not giving any justification for it, but I think that's why none of it was too groundbreaking for us when we saw that article. Because it's like, of course that would be Ramona.
Right.
She's so inappropriate.
Yeah. Do you think it's the right call to not have her at BravoCon? I mean, after that story came out, I don't see how she could have been there. I mean, she would have probably been booed off the stage.
I think that with all eyes right now on Bravo and on NBC Universal, because of this Bethany reality reckoning and everyone just like looking with a binocular, what are all the bad things that could happen? If they just like swept this under the rug and put her on a stage, not only would they look really bad, like they were accepting this kind of behavior, but I guarantee you a huge portion of the cast on other shows and crew or talent or guests or whatever would be like, please,
What's
like I
going
didn't
on?
pay,
Yeah.
I didn't pay to watch a racist on my
Right.
stage.
Right.
I imagine. So Ramona, I mean, talk about like digging a hole and then jumping in and putting dirt right on top of your head. Like she really screwed that one up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, I get she was trying to explain that she said the N word instead of the actual word.
Right.
But then she started to type it out, which is like, I don't know. She probably genuinely has no idea what she did wrong.
No, she does. I mean, clearly, otherwise it's like she's making the same mistake over and over and over again. And that's why I say, like, at what point is it going to take? Or is it just not, is she humanly incapable of understanding the concept? And I mean, I will say this, like, you know, culture is changing and rapidly. And Ramona, I mean, she's not like 90 years old, but it's
something.
yeah, but it's like, is she just not equipped because of how she grew up? Or I don't understand. I really,
it's a really soft, or touchy, I should say, conversation because I talked about this too and I got a lot of pushback. A lot of older people in like that 60-some-year-old plus, not all. So please don't hear this as all, because I know a lot of people that are very, very old and are completely not racist and like completely treat people fairly. But there is a certain subculture of people who are raised in a certain way, maybe with certain parents that kind of instilled certain thoughts or values. Maybe it's politicians that they follow or influencers that they follow online or shows that they watch. We don't know.
Mhm.
That are so kind of stuck in who they are that they almost feel like, why should I have to change?
Yeah.
Like, this is who I am.
Yeah.
This is who I am. And I know some of those people.
Yeah.
You know, like in my personal life. And so that's how I can kind of connect to this, because I think that there are certain people out there that like maybe understand why other people are offended, but they're like, it's not my problem.
Right. And that is Ramona to a T. I mean, we've seen that not even just in this instance, but, you know, plenty of other times when she's offending people, you know, once an episode, it felt like.
Yeah. And if this came from anyone else, if anyone else on any of the other casts, I'm sure there are some that we can think it would come from. But if this came from like a Heather Dubrow, just say, or I said earlier, like a Lisa Barlow, it would be very shocking.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us would be highly upset.
Yeah.
But with Ramona, it's like, add it to the list, man.
Right.
She is just, you know, there's certain people, when they show you who they are, believe them.
Right.
But yeah, it's kind of crazy that she's not going to be there. And what do you think is going to happen to Girls Trip?
I have no idea.
There's no way they hold this. There's no way they shelve another Girls Trip.
I know. I almost feel like they can't, because they have already shelved the one with Brandy and Caroline. And, you know, it was supposed to come out in December. So I don't know. The wheels are definitely turning behind the scenes. I don't think that they will shelf it, but I think this will be the last Girls Trip we see Ramona on. Obviously, we know they're not doing like a full-fledged legacy. I think we'll definitely get more Sonia and Luann moving forward, you know, more crappy Lake or whatever. Yeah. But I want to move into Ebony versus Bethany, because out of the whole article, this is the best thing I think that has come up. So in the article, Ebony was asked about joining, you know, forces with Bethany or joining the reckoning. And she said, F Bethany Frankel. You think I'm going to let some white girl speak for me with my experience with a multi-billion-dollar corporation? First of all, I love that response for her, but it didn't stop there because they started fighting in the DMs. So Bethany posted this on her Instagram story. Okay, so Ebony had messaged Bethany, and the message said, "We met on a private flight from Palm Beach to New York City a couple years ago. Just thanking you for consistently using your platform for tangible change." That was sent in June of 2020, which
was like the height of George Floyd and all of that. So
yes.
I'm sure at that point, Bethany was posting a lot about, you know, Black Lives Matter and support. And also, I don't think at that point, Ebony had started shooting Roni yet.
I don't know. They
shot it during COVID, but I don't think it was that early. Do you really think it was already in June?
Right. I probably not. Sorry,
it was probably around that time.
What kind of outfits were they wearing? Like, was it?
I know. I know. I do remember. I mean, I remember that they had Shabbat dinner.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was like a couple different things, but I don't remember because that was a crazy season. Remember, everything was closed down and they couldn't even go to restaurants.
Yeah. And, you know, in this DM, there was no response for like 2 years.
Yeah.
And then Bethany responded in August of 2022 saying, wow, I never saw this. Thanks. And I'm sorry. I'm so late. So then on Saturday, she posted another screenshot, Bethany reaching out saying, do you have a minute? Ebony did not respond to it. She then posted the screenshot and said, Bethany Frankel tried it, pulling out a receipt from 3 years ago, back when you used to focus on philanthropy instead of thirst trapping on other people's hardships. And I was like,
ouch.
Get Ebony back on our TV. Like, you know, like in that moment, I was like, I mean, but she hit the nail on the head.
Yeah. I mean, Bethany's the queen of the pivot, and she's really pivoted her content in the last few months, obviously. I think a lot of people feel this way about Bethany. They're like, why are you fighting the good fight, right? Like, why are you doing this? Why are you taking everyone's issues and making it your own? But that's who Bethany is. She wants to take credit for it. She wants to be responsible for it. I think that's why she hasn't connected with like the people that are upset at Love is Blind and those reality stars that actually have lawsuits. Actually, I know this for a fact that she hasn't connected with them because she wants it to be under her wing. And they're like, no, we're not going to just be like one of your people. We have our own story too.
Right.
So I think, you know, there's a little bit of that kind of, and we've heard this before, that like white savior complex with Bethany, right? Like, I want to fight the fight for everyone, but it almost does. And it's tricky because a lot of people didn't like the use of the word. Like, you think I'm going to let some white girl, you know, which I kind of agree. It's like, why are we even doing that? It didn't really feel necessary. But at the same time, I think what she's trying to say is this is a race issue.
Right.
And so it would be like me, you know, talking about the fact that like female rights or whatever and having a man speak for me. It wouldn't make sense.
Yeah.
So I think that that's what she meant. But fighting in the DMs, it's not a good look really for either, to be honest. Do you think?
I mean, is it a good look? No. Do I enjoy the mess? Yes. And I like somebody who also is a housewife publicly pushing back against Bethany, because all we've seen really is like, you know, a Raquel situation where there's the little fragile bird that, like you said, Bethany comes and swoops up and gives her a platform and makes all this money off of her, when it's like, no, Ebony is just as strong of a woman. She can speak for herself. If she wants to sue Bravo, she will sue Bravo. She doesn't need Bethany's help doing it. But like you said, I feel like Bethany's intentions just don't come across as pure because I think a lot of it is for attention. Obviously, B, because she even this year was trying to get shows on Bravo that didn't end up working out. C, she's
giving better.
Right. She hasn't sued them. So she's just trying to make a lot of noise because
she's not actually fighting the fight.
Because she can't sue them. So she's just trying to get as much attention as possible. And I'm just glad that somebody else is going to be like, I see what you're doing and it's not going to fly with me.
I think, and there's a couple other people. So Bethany released one of her podcasts this week, you know, these ranting podcasts. And I saw someone post about it where she basically claps back at like Leah Black and Luann and Ariana Maddox and like all these other Bravo stars, or current and former, who had said that Bethany's like in the wrong. And she's clapping back saying, yes, I see what you guys are doing. You're just like good soldiers. You're good Bravo soldiers, you know, fighting for Bravo. And I think to myself, like, at what point does Bethany realize like she's actually threatening careers and, you know, livelihoods of so many people by trying to take down this machine of Bravo? Why is it her fight? I get the residuals. I get that part. Like, I do think that people should be accurately paid, but everything else is just feeling like we're digging. And this is your moment. The Vanity Fair article, which Bethany says this article, author Anna Peel, it's just a small corner, she said, of the big problem. I'm like, no, this girl should have been the big corner.
Right.
Why are we only like giving a little seed? This is the moment.
Right. Or it was at least portrayed like it was going to be the moment. And if what she's saying is true and it's not the moment, you have now lost a lot of your audience moving forward, because it's like The Boy Who Cried Wolf, you know, like, oh, this big Vanity Fair article is going to bring Bravo down, and it didn't. So what are you saying? Oh, there's more. But is there? There's probably not.
And if it is, it's probably stuff like Leah's stories, right? It's like, oh, one time I wanted to go home and they didn't have a van ready for me to go. And so I had to like stay at the restaurant too late and I didn't want to be there and whatever. Like there's going to be stories like that.
Yeah.
But, you know, Heather Gay got so drunk on an episode just a couple of weeks ago on Salt Lake City.
Puking it through the bag.
Can't even talk about it, right? And so off 46 espresso martinis, Heather Gay drank those martinis on her own. She doesn't clearly know how many martinis she can take, but not one person watching that show is like, wow, production really effed that. No, it was part of the story. She got hammered and then was throwing up all over herself. That's on Heather. She also faked a black eye. That's on Heather. Or lied about a black eye. These are all these housewives are problematic. It's true in their own ways. They're entertaining. They're good TV. And I hate to imagine that any of these women, like I can't imagine that any of them, look at the new cast of Roni, Jenna Lyons, smart, like accomplished businesswoman. She chose to be on the show because it's for her business, because it allows more exposure for her brand. They are going to continue to choose to do this. What are we doing here?
Yeah. And like you said, I mean, there are, and I've said this the whole time, there are good things that are coming out of this from Bethany, the residuals, the mental health resources. Like, I feel like there are things that everybody could agree on that, yes, in 2023, these things should be talked about, but it's getting lost. It's getting lost because Bethany wants to be the center of it and not, she just wants, that's my opinion, that she just wants the attention from it all.
And she just wants to take down Andy. Like, it's so clear. Why is nothing else talked about other than Bravo? Why is Andy Cohen, who she is now compared to a cult leader, and Harvey Weinstein? What? Like, I'm sorry. Andy is definitely not perfect. I think we all have heard like stories of good and bad. He's probably got some issues in his life with the way he treats other people, as is an amazing entertainer and a great reality TV host.
Right.
And Watch What Happens Live is amazing TV. So like he's a genius, right? He's put all these people together on the map for all of our purposes, for all of our entertainment. Her goal is truly to kill Andy Cohen's career. That's it. She wants him off.
But why? Like, is it just because she's jealous?
Yeah.
Bitter?
I honestly think it comes from a place of, I was your favorite. Now I'm not. And because of that, I don't want anyone else to have you. Like, how dare anyone else feel like they're your favorite? They were so tight. She always says, no, it was just about work. Bull. You don't go on beach walks with your boss.
Right.
Like, you were friends, right? She was friends with all of them. Kelly Ripa and Sarah Jessica Parker. Like, she was in that crew. And she's bitter because he passed on projects for her. Bravo passed and like wasn't really down. And then of course that one time on Watch What Happens Live, right? When she was on and he basically said, oh, so now you're talking about the Housewives for your podcast.
Right.
She
and
felt
when you
embarrassed.
think about it, her relationship with Carol ended for similar reasons.
Totally.
I can't remember the specific person, but it was like Carol was really good friends with somebody that, had business connections. And Bethany was like, hook me up with this person. And Carol was like, no, I'm not going to do that for you just because you're my friend. And end of their relationship.
Yeah. We can do a whole like deep dive on Bethany's life. But the other day when Bethany was hysterically crying on TikTok and on Instagram about how she had the opportunity to ring the bell at NASDAQ.
Oh, right.
Be strong. And she was so lonely because her daughter couldn't make it. Number one, talk about toxic mother issues. Like, what 13-year-old is going to see that your mom's hysterically snotting, crying all over online because you couldn't be at something because you had math?
Yeah.
That's a lot. But also it just goes to show like Bethany is alone. I don't think she does have a lot of friends. I think actually I know that she doesn't have a lot of friends from people that are peripherally involved. And she probably has a couple of people, but the majority of her friends are her TikTok and Instagram audience. And that's why she rants and raves morning through night. She creates more TikToks than anyone we know.
Yeah. Where do you think Bethany goes from here? And where do you think Bravo goes from here?
I think Bravo's definitely taking a hit, but look, we're going to BravoCon this weekend. We're going to see so much excitement and fun, and I guarantee you it's going to reinvigorate the brand. People are going to have a great time with it, and hopefully, there's not gonna be any crazy drama. And I think the goal is for Bravo to just kind of pretend everything's okay. Don't talk about it. Don't talk about it. Keep going. I think NBC Universal has so much money and so many attorneys that anyone that goes up against them is going to be severely like killed in court.
Yeah.
Going against them is like going against, I don't know, like a huge entity. It's so hard.
Yeah.
For like, I don't understand how Leah McSweeney can win here. I don't get it. But I'm sure there's maybe some weird ways. But also, I think that Bethany will always find a way to pivot. And if this doesn't work, just like a lot of other things haven't, she'll continue to be fine because she's confident and she has huge stands. Like she's got fans that will fight for her to the death. I don't know if you noticed that in her comments.
Yeah.
Her people love her. And so anytime I say anything, it's gotten a little easier now, but I was talking kind of badly about Bethany about a year ago before all this. And I mean, my DMs, my comments were bad. Like,
oh gosh, really?
Oh yeah. People really like Bethany. Like they fight for her. I think it's changed in the last few months, but
it definitely has. I mean, I wouldn't say that I would ever go into somebody's DMs if they had a, opposing opinion, but I really was a fan of Bethany. Like
you were all.
I really loved her. I thought she was like on my Mount Rushmore of housewives. Loved her.
Had literally like a post-it on my wall saying, I will meet Bethany Frankel. Like I was obsessed. And I think that the majority of people that are really kind of like sad about this and confused by her are people that were her biggest fans.
Yeah.
Because it feels like, what happened to our friend? Now,
what
Bethany
happened? Pour one out for former Bethany.
I know she was so good. But Bethany was a mean girl on TV. We just didn't see it that way because she was funny.
Right.
But if you go back and watch like a lot of the way she talked about her other castmates and her quips and stuff, if she didn't have a good sense of humor, a good delivery, it would be mean.
Oh, yeah. Well, I feel like a lot of people dug that stuff back up when she did do the interview with Raquel because they were like, hello, pot, meat, kettle. Do you remember what you've said about so many other people? I mean, was it hard? Was the stuff that Ariana said to Rachel harsh? Sure. Was it deserved? In my opinion, yes. I would do a lot
2 weeks
worse.
after it all came out.
A lot worse. Like, and she did it on camera. So it just is what it is. But thank you so much for coming on. I'm looking forward to BravoCon this weekend. Tell everyone where they can listen to you, your YouTube show, and your Instagram and TikTok accounts.
Yay. Okay. So my name is spelled Dana. It's hard to, understand, but it's Donna, Dana. So I'm on Instagram at This Is Donna Bowling, same at TikTok. And then my show is called Daily Dose of Donna on YouTube and on all the podcast apps every day, 5 days a week.
See you at BravoCon.
Yay.
All right. Thank you guys again for hanging out. Another episode of MPT. Thank you for being patient with me while I recovered from being sick. It feels so good to be back. Don't forget to leave a review. I haven't had a new review since I've been a married woman. So even if you just leave me a little congrats or love you like a sis, I appreciate every single one of your rates and your reviews. Make sure you're subscribed to the Extra Pop Patreon. Going to be posting live from BravoCon all weekend. If you're going to BravoCon, say hello. If you scream lilacs to me, I will hear you and we can be best buddies because that's what it's all about. Okay. If not, I'll see you next Thursday. Love you like a sis, of course.